Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. In this video, quick explanation of what's known as the PNF stretching technique, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. Yeah, say that 5 times fast. That's why we just say PNF, okay? So the PNF stretching technique, uh, very effective when it comes to assisting with increasing range of motion, elongating the muscles, and just taking a very short period of time, 5, 10, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, literally the entire process. If you do it correctly, after you warm up, do this, what I would call a modified PNF type stretching. Doesn't take very long, half a minute at most, for the muscles that you're stretching. Remember, prior to a workout, you generally, I mean, I guess you could, but you generally want to limit the amount of relaxation stretching that you're doing on the muscle. We actually want to kind of get the muscle a little bit more active, so to speak, from a neuromuscular perspective. So the type of stretching that's recommended for the average client and athletes prior to the workout is something that doesn't take very long, but provides the ability to lengthen the muscle beyond what it's normally accustomed to do for a short period of time, and that actually aids with the workout that's now going to come after the warm up and the stretch. Okay, so got videos on all of that. In this one, I just want to make sure you understand that there is a method for utilizing the PNF established methodology, but doing it in a way where you don't need an assistant, because technically PNF stretching is an assistive method of stretching, meaning I am going to stretch you, right? And so that's great. It can be very helpful, especially in like a therapeutic setting. But for a personal trainer, we don't do any of that. You're not touching and grabbing people and moving and manipulating them. You're going to have them do it on their own. So technically, PNF, I guess we'd have to have a little argument, I guess, on that. Technically, it's not true PNF, right? If you don't have an assistant doing it, and that's fine, because I'm not interested in that part of it. We're interested in utilizing the method, the technique, okay, which incorporates, yes, autogenic inhibition, reciprocal inhibition, yada yada, all of those sort of physiological, neuromuscular physiological attributes that muscles have and the nervous system has that allow us to manipulate the muscle. Okay, so in my opinion, PNF, that type of stretching, especially for a personal trainer, and modifying it so that it's just the individual doing it themselves, is probably one of the best ways. And I've been doing it literally for decades. So I call it a modified PNF. And it was a student that had asked me the question. So I figured it'd be a good idea to give a more general explanation. So PNF technically has sort of 3 levels or 3 methods that work off of each other that you can use. And the first level of stretching technically is just called the hold, relax in some way, shape, or form. You might hear folks, practitioners describe it a little bit differently, but technically you're doing what we would consider to be basically a static type of stretch, right? You move a limb, and I would think that the best sort of representation or example of this is stretching your hamstrings, right? So one of the cool things about PNF with an assistant is that, the participant can lie on their back, and then they can take their leg and move. And you know what I'm talking about. The knee is slightly bent, and the assistant takes the heel and pushes it up, and you're stretching your hamstring out. Now, technically, you could do that, I guess, with a band or a rope. What I like to do is actually have the client stand up, and they will lean forward, keep an arch in their lower back, and they're able to, one leg at a time, stretch out their hamstrings. Now, again, just want to give you sort of an overview. PNF stretching technically is a way, right, for an assistant to do it, but without the assistant doing it yourself, you've got to make some modifications. So the first way that you sort of apply the neuromuscular physiology aspect of how the muscle functions is to simply move it into a stretch position, right? Minor discomfort. So basically, you are elongating the muscle, however you got to do that, and holding it in that static position, right? Generally, it's a couple of seconds, 5 seconds, could be up to 10 seconds. At some point, you're going to have to now do the next step, and it's called relax. So generally, now again, generally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use breathing to help and assist with the relaxation of the muscle. So we take a muscle, move it into its sort of lengthened position where it won't lengthen any longer. I have the client take a deep breath, and as they exhale, I just tell them to relax. So you get it, hold, relax. And as the individual relaxes and the parasympathetic nervous system kind of kicks in a little bit because of the deep breathing, and it's got to be deep. Yes, you got to take a deep breath and exhale. So when you do that simultaneously, it's actually pretty interesting. It's pretty cool to watch. You'll find that the muscle, and let's just say we're doing the hamstring in this case, the hamstring will literally relax a little bit, and the leg will be able to move a little bit closer up towards this way if you get the sort of the picture of what I'm explaining. So you get it. So there is a hold, right? And I can do this standing up. I can lean forward and allow my pelvis to anteriorly tilt, which will lengthen my hamstring, and hold it there. Take a deep breath, and as I exhale, I relax. So hold, relax. Like that's like the basic level of PNF methodology. So you pull the muscle into like a static stretch position, you hold it. Now, again, you could say 5, 10 seconds, whatever that number is. It could be 3 seconds. Okay. But from that held position, you've got to take a deep breath. And then as you exhale, you tell the client, or the client will relax themselves. And as they relax and exhale simultaneously, the muscle will literally relax and lengthen. Okay, this is due to autogenic inhibition, right? So autogenic GTOs are the Golgi tendon organs, send a signal to the spinal column, yada, yada, into neurons, blah, 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 and the muscle lengthens. Yay. And you can do that once, do it twice, move on to to the other side. Say, hold, relax. Sort of the next level, or I guess you could say like stage two, is doing the exact same thing, but you are applying tension. You are contracting that very same muscle. So when we pulled our hamstring up to that lengthened position and we held it there, we were not actively contracting the hamstrings. Now, there are a couple of ways to do this. I've seen some people actually tell the client to pull the leg down. So there's an actual concentric or minor concentric contraction, just a little bit. And then at that point, the assistant, if it's a true PNF with a practitioner, will tell them to stop, take a deep breath, exhale, and then as they go back, they literally go back even further. So all you're doing in that second stage is you're simply adding the element of contracting the muscle you're trying to stretch. So you hold it, you contract it, maybe a little bit of concentric contraction to the movement, and then exhale, just like you did with the hold, relax method. Now you're basically hold, contract, relax. So you're adding an element, because we understand neuromuscular physiology well enough to where when you contract the muscle and relax it, it will actually disengage even more than if you simply held that muscle in this static stretch position. So contract the muscle and it will go even further. Now, that's great because that's kind of the one that I will do with most folks. Now, what I'll do is I'll actually just have it do an isometric contraction, right? I won't have them literally move or contract the muscle through concentric range of motion. I'll just have them hold it statically, right? And isometrically contract the muscle. They take a deep breath, they exhale, and they are able to stretch it again. So that's like level 2. Now you get to sort of the stage 3, level 3. Again, I do modified, so I don't have somebody doing it with me. However, this stage 3 level, so to speak, is probably the most effective. Now, beep, beep, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, you need to be very, very careful when you do this with detrained, unfit clients. Okay. There's a really good reason for it. And let me explain it to you. So the only difference now when you go from this first level, second to the third is that in addition, because it's basically the stage 2, it's the contract, relax, right? Hold, contract, relax. You add one more element to it. and this is the key. It's called antagonistic, right, contraction or contraction of the antagonistic muscle. We understand that because of this concept known as reciprocal inhibition. If I contract one muscle, the neuromuscular system ensures that the muscle can actually contract and move through a range of motion by reciprocally inhibiting its antagonist. Ooh. Okay, so basically, if I contract my quadriceps, right, simultaneously, the hamstrings will relax. So if I'm trying to stretch my hamstrings, I want them to relax. That's what those two levels we just spoke about do. Now, if I want to maximize the relaxation, because remember, even at those two basic levels that we're talking about, the hamstrings in this case, they don't fully relax. It's not like they go totally, right? Muscle spindle fiber activation is always there. It's always going to provide some level of tension. But if you really want to knock out the muscle spindle fiber holding the muscle, right, contracted slightly, is you add this extra element known as reciprocal inhibition. And basically all you're doing is you're doing the hold, contract, relax technique. But now, again, this is why it can be a little bit of a problem with a client, because I'm asking them to do 2 or 3 things simultaneously. And most people can't chew gum and walk at the same time. So then asking them to take a deep breath, exhale, and flex and squeeze and do all this, okay, could be a challenge. The other problem with this is that when I ask a client to contract a muscle, in this case, let's say we're stretching the hamstrings. If I ask them to contract their quadriceps, one of 2 things happens. Number one, they go into a cramp. I've seen it 100 times. If I've seen it once, they'll contract the muscle and they don't have the subtlety capability because they're unfit. They don't have the sort of neuromuscular facilitation. They will literally spaz out that muscle. I've seen it. It's crazy. That's why I generally don't do it. So here I am getting the client to stretch their hamstring, right? They elongate the hamstring and I say, now I want you to do basically 3 things. You want to tense your hamstring, and then simultaneously you're going to relax the hamstring, you're going to take a deep breath, exhale, and then at the same time you're going to tense your quadricep. Okay, let's say they're able to do that. They do everything. They go tense, exhale, and then tense their quadricep in this case. I've seen it happen where, yeah, they'll spaz up on the quadricep. Why? Because they can't just contract slightly to get the reciprocal inhibited activation that's necessary. So the point is that is the next level. I can take the contract, relax technique, and then I just add in contraction of the antagonistic muscle. When I then add that contraction of the antagonistic muscle, I am consciously flexing the opposing muscle to the one I'm stretching. When I consciously do that, I am now inhibiting the muscle spindle fibers even further in the hamstrings, which allows them to stretch even further, increases range of motion even further. It's a great way. It is a great way in a very short period of time to get that target muscle that you are trying to stretch to elongate, relax, and elongate for just the couple of seconds needed. And then you go back and you do it again, maybe 2 or 3 times. But think about that. That literally takes 15 seconds, maybe 10, 15, 20 seconds max. Very effective technique. So let me circle it back around. PNF stretching technically is an assistive method to help somebody stretch, elongate their muscles. Modified PNF, which is what I do, a modified PNF type of stretching technique still uses the same concepts of neuromuscular physiology, right? Autogenic inhibition, reciprocal inhibition, right? All of those uses that same methodology, but you're doing it alone. You're doing it by yourself instead of having somebody do it. So call it modified, right? The whole point is that you have to combine a couple of components here that will allow the muscle to elongate and stretch for a very short period of time, just a couple of seconds, versus passive stretching, where you're elongating the muscle and sitting into it, right, and relaxing, which is great, but don't do that before a workout, right? And the way we do this then is we bring the muscle to a stretched position where the muscle won't elongate any longer. Level one is to simply hold it, right? Take a deep breath. And as you exhale and relax, the muscle will lengthen a little bit more, right? We could add a little bit extra spiciness to that by saying before you relax, take that deep breath and relax. Why don't you just flex the muscle, tense it, contract it isometrically or even concentrically? You could do it, but isometric contraction. So now you are adding this element of contraction, right? So now you have contract, relax, or hold, contract, relax, right? Take a deep breath, exhale, right? And you can stretch out your hamstring. Okay. And now we can make it even more interesting and more effective by doing that technique of hold, contract, relax, and then simultaneously, upon exhaling, contracting, relaxing, you look at the antagonistic muscle and you contract that. And that's actually going to increase the range of motion for that joint because that muscle that you are trying to straighten, your target muscle, will relax and lengthen even further. Okay. So I hope this video was helpful. For those of you that have tried the technique, just let us know in the comment box if it is an effective technique for you. Okay, want to make sure that when you're doing this, especially with clients, be very, very careful. You cannot be over cautious, especially with stretching. It's very easy with detrained, unfit individuals to hurt them, believe it or not. Again, they don't generally, not everybody, but generally they don't have the experience and the subtlety of neuromuscular facilitation to be able to do that third level without, say, cramping that antagonistic muscle that you're asking them to flex. So if you did understand this and it was helpful, please let us know in the comments section. Of course, subscribe to our channel if you have not done so. I guess like, right? And then if you know somebody that's interested in it, you could send it over, send it over to them. And of course, just let us know how we can be of help. As always, have a great week. We will see you next week. Thanks.